Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to get started with our second half of the day. And someone took all the cheesecake. And I wonder who in here took all the cheesecake. So I got a very small sliver of cheesecake. So I'm going to eye each and every one of you until I find out who the culprit is. So as we get going with our second part of our afternoon, this is a very important part because as we deliver the training, the Workforce Equity Initiative training, we need our employers to employ the individuals that we work with on a day-to-day basis. So we're quite pleased with what is going on. I wanted to give you a few statistics about the WEI program. Of course, some of our desired outcomes are to make certain that we accelerate time to completion, so a year certificate or less, so that folks can get to work. And then another desired outcome is for individuals to receive a wage of 30% above the regional living wage. And I know that our 18 community colleges are working in that vein. Right now, our average wage statewide is somewhere around $21.40, 42 cents, something like that. But that's great. That's great. That means that folks are on that pathway to self-sufficiency, and that's what we want. And what we heard from Representative Gordon Booth is that it is important that the children actually see the parents being successful, because that is definitely an indicator of their success as well. Also, as we take a look at our numbers, we have, as has been forementioned, over 9,000 students that we've served in the 4-year period of time. Also, the number of credentials is about equal to the number of students. So there's some that receive a couple of credentials. We're doing a better job of collecting that data, whether it's an industry recognized credential or a community college certificate. So we're doing great in that area. And 73% of the individuals that we service in our WEI program are African American students, which is the #1 target. So that is to be commendable that we are really exceeding that target. The other area that we're working on, we're looking at completers that are employed, and we know that we are trying to collect that information, and we know that our folks leave our programs and they don't want to pick up the phone to call us when we do a survey or something. So we are working with the Illinois Department of Employment Security to do data matching so that we can make certain that we are capturing all of the students that we need to. The average age ranges from 21 to 39 years of age, but we do have students across the whole spectrum. And the majority of the students that we service in the Workforce Equity Initiative are females. So we're looking at some of those non-traditional type careers that we're looking at that folks are going into. So as we lead into our panel discussion today, I just wanted to share with you that our enrollment by high demand fields are the healthcare areas, the manufacturing, business services, transportation, construction, computer technology, and repair installation. So those are the top fields that we actually train within the WEI program. And so some of the highest wages that were reported were truck driving at $75 an hour, cannabis dispensary at $50 an hour, overhead electrical line at $42, nursing on a pathway, $36 an hour, and welding at $39 an hour. So it's causing a lot of you to take a look at, let's see. I've often thought that too. Earlier in my career, I'm like, I could go to a community college and get 2-year certificate and I could be making, but it's wonderful to see that from the video that we saw this morning, those folks are the reason that we're here, and they are going to work for some fantastic employers. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sheila Quirk-Bailey, and she's going to introduce our panel. Thank you.
So how's the conference going? Is it working? Excellent. Excellent. So before we even get started, because I'm going to have our employers introduce themselves, but how about anyone in the room who's also an employer who works for an organization who's hired a WEI student? Could you also stand up without getting employers, without getting jobs for these folks? This is all just an exercise in futility, right? There are all kinds of educational programs out there that say they help people, but if you actually work for an organization who's hired WEI as well as these, let's give them a round of applause, because they're what's keeping the wheels on the bus. All right, well, thank you for joining us. So we've got 4 panelists and representing 3 employers who consistently work with WEI students. And I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves and tell us who you are, what company you represent, right, and what are your current workforce challenges. You want to go start with your Jennifer? Thank you.
I'm probably the least experienced public speaker up here, so I'll get
Michelle,
started.
you're going to be great.
My name is Jennifer Parrott, and I work for JT Fennell Company, and we are a steel manufacturer. We have 2 different locations, one in Chillicothe, Illinois, and then here in Peoria. We build component parts per customer spec for our customers, and our industry ranges between agricultural, construction, road paving. Did I say agriculture? I think that's about it. Anyway, so we employ right now 115 people at our company, so we're very small. And I'm very honored to be here today representing manufacturing. We have a huge gap that we need desperately filled. Mainly, I'm sure you all have heard, welders is what we are looking for, mainly in this industry. So proud to be here, and I've already been part of WEI a little bit, and we currently have 2 guys that are employed through ICC, specifically through their certification program, through this grant. So Michael and Daniel came to us about 1.5 years ago. They will be here 2 years in November, so we're getting there. And I'm proud to say that they started at a wage part-time shortly before their certification, and they have now are making $5.50 more than what they were making 1.5 years ago, and they are doing very well. So thank you to the educator for helping us provide employees.
Wonderful. So Milas?
Good afternoon. My name is Milas Copeland. I'm the General Manager and Managing Partner for Green Toyota, Volkswagen, and Audi in Springfield, Illinois. We are a part of the Green family stores. I've been with the store for about 26 years. We represent stores. We have 10 new car franchises in the city of Springfield. We also have stores located here in Peoria, as well as the Quad Cities and over on the Iowa side. Our biggest challenge is people. We talked earlier, sure there is a shortage of product within the automobile and the automotive industry, but the biggest thing that we face is how do we get people, and it's skilled labor, And that's where the WEI program has been absolutely so beneficial to us, and that is trying to both find, to locate, to recruit, and to retain those employees. Candace, who's somewhere in the room, my only fault with Candace and the WEI program is that somehow you managed to run it for 2 years under our nose and we didn't know it. And because quite candidly, if we had known about the program earlier, we would have jumped in sooner. It has been a wonderful tool for not just me, but for all of our stores in the Springfield community. We are expanding that. We have brought in one of our OEM partners, Toyota Motor Sales USA, the Chicago region specific. We are launching a program with our local community college and the WEI program to facilitate that and to get them more training so that when they come out, they are just that much more advanced to immediately enter into the workforce. So it has been a great plus for us, and we thank you.
Wonderful. And then next we have Carly Health.
Hi, my name is Kim Stewart. I am the Talent Acquisition Manager for Carl Health here in the Peoria region. Usually I don't have a problem with my voice, but we were formerly Unity Point Health, and we have been Carl Health since April 1st. So we are happy to be a part of WEI, and we actually have 2 individuals that we've hired specifically from ICC here in the local Peoria area. Now being part of Carl Health, which is an Illinois-based healthcare company, it is a lot more beneficial to be able to focus our WEI efforts within the Bloomington, Springfield, and Champaign area. In addition, we are looking for people. Obviously, after the COVID pandemic did a number on healthcare workers and those interested in healthcare fields for fear for the availability of flexibility that not only you're looking for and students are looking for, but being a 24/7 company, the hospitals don't close on Christmas. They don't close on New Year's. They're open on the weekends, and it takes a special person to be able to care for others. And that's one of the things that we are looking for, but we're also looking for people that are compassionate but want to learn and want to move up. We look for those that want to enter, not only the nursing programs, but there are so many other healthcare opportunities out there, from even patient access to really the entry-level opportunities, but also imaging, respiratory. I began my healthcare career about 9 months ago and never realized how many different opportunities, because most of the time when you think healthcare, you think doctors and nurses. But there are so many other opportunities within the organizations. You just need to learn about them and also be willing to be flexible as much as possible, because it's not going to happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Michelle Biggs. I am a talent acquisition partner with Carl Health, and I have been with the organization for about 5 years. I've worked and started in higher education at Methodist College, and then transitioned over to a recruiting role. So I'll piggyback off of Kim and kind of fill in some of those gaps from what I have seen in my tenure in this role. We know that we need people. And we know that we need nurses. And so within the past 1.5 to 2 years, our chair of nursing, as well as our nursing directors and then our nurse managers, kind of came together to figure out a different route for filling in those gaps that we need with nurses. And so in those gaps, we've filled in our LPNs. Traditionally, LPNs have been working in long-term care facilities. And we really figured out a way to, within their scope of practice, for them to work in the hospital successfully. So in that transition period, we have reduced the need and the number of RNs that we are recruiting for and added in LPNs in those spaces. We now have LPNs that are working in our behavioral health units in our EDs, and I know some of those LPNs that I have talked to are thrilled that they have an opportunity to work in the ED because that's their goal. I've always wanted to work in the ED, and nobody's ever given me that opportunity. And we also have some LPNs that are working in our acute care settings, so neuro, cardiac, rehab, and then plenty of LPNs that are working in our clinics as well. So just kind of filling in those gaps with, we know we have gaps in our hiring needs, and we've just filled those with some of those LPNs, especially from the WEI. So thank you.
Wonderful. So thanks, Kim and Michelle. When we talk about a pathway, because we provide jobs 30% above the regional living wage, you're on a pathway. I can't thank Carl enough for the pathway we have. We have grants that allow our high school students to earn CNA. Then they can come to a community college to earn LPN within a year. And then they go straight into the two hospital systems in this region who both have schools of nursing. So then while they're working, they can go to get their RN for free. So in this community, we can move people of poverty starting in high school all the way through to RN, right? And a model I think that other of you are doing and we should be looking at, because that 1-year LPN fits very well into our program, and then they continue going. So those pathways are just so important. So let's stay with you and we'll work back this way. So tell us about your experience in terms of recruiting WEI students and other community college workforce students. So, and also know, while you were chosen because you're wonderful partners, we're also here to learn and grow. So if there's something about that can be improved, or hey, it's working with WEI, but overall, I don't know how to tap in or connect, whatever those issues would be, you've got a room full of exceptional educators and program managers here. So let us know what we can do for you to make things better as well. So again, let's start at the end with Carl.
Sure. So like Kim mentioned, we've worked with a few WEI LPNs. One of them is incredibly successful. This LPN is still a newer graduate. They are a preceptor and a mentor and a really great recruiter. I don't know how many times this person has talked to the students that come in that they're precepting and have given my name, and they've reached out to me directly. So really great prime employee. I know somebody that's really going to grow with us and a really great asset to our team. On the other hand, we have a candidate that I've really struggled getting into the door because of their availability and their accessibility for childcare. And so that's, really down to the nitty-gritty, that we really struggle with their availability to find a role that would fit for them and their home needs. We've tried multiple different routes, and we're still struggling. I know that we've talked to this candidate a few times within the past few months to see if there's a different opportunity out there, but I think the high need, just based off of just this one candidate, is, when we hire in new graduate RNs and LPNs, I'd say the majority of the time they're nights and weekends. First off, if there's any healthcare nurses in here, they usually give me bad eyes, but usually sometimes at nights it's quieter. But there's less, there's less families that you're dealing with, less admits and discharges. So it is a little bit slower, and new graduates are able to work on their skills a little bit better while at night. So it is easier for new graduates to do nights and weekends. But that doesn't work for somebody that doesn't have childcare at night, or maybe doesn't have a support system at night. And so trying to work around filling in some of those gaps within our community would be, I think, really helpful in making some of these new graduates a little bit more successful.
Great. Thank you. And coming from that, I've been in the industry and recruiting for over 20 years, so I feel like I started when I was 10 because I refuse to be as old as I am right now. But I have seen the pre and post 9/11. I've seen the pre and post pandemic, and everybody in here understands the Great Resignation. Everybody understands, we're dealing with a different population of students. We were discussing this at our table right now. Students have seen almost the worst thing that could happen in the United States with the death tolls, the rates, and the problems that we've seen. So they're really looking for opportunities that they can be flexible with. With that, employers are looking for people that want to work. You know, we are transitioning out of the baby boomers who were used to working. They were lucky to have a position. They never asked for any raises. They were extremely happy to have a job. They went to work, they came home, and that was it. And now we've transitioned to a world where people have somewhat unrealistic expectations of jobs. They're 18 years old and they want to come in as a manager. They are, and some of you laugh, but you've all seen it. I can tell you it's not always correct up to be sometimes, but I do think that being open with your students, being open in expectations and setting those expectations, not only for employers to do, but setting the expectations for candidates going through school, saying, okay, you know, in healthcare, you know, there's a lot of different options to go through, but you need to start somewhere, and it's going to take a little bit of a time. Or if you want to learn this skill, that's great, but think about what you can do in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. Put those plans in place and let them think bigger picture. Because a lot of times students are saying, I don't want this job because it doesn't fit into my life goal right now of working, you know, 10 to 2 and being paid $1,000 an hour. You know, those are some of the things that I know that we're facing as far as realistic expectations. And what we're looking for is the educators and the people that really start them into their professional careers and what they're passionate about. Go after those passions, but also at the same time, set those expectations with them from the beginning. In addition, talk to the employers, have them come in to your classrooms. Talk to candidates. I mean, they're going to understand and they want to hear from people that are in that job. Not only from where we are in the HR industry, but we'll bring nurse managers to places. We will bring nurses and give them the real life expectations. Because I think that's what a lot of students are looking for. They're looking for that real life, not just, you know, as a parent, I can say, I can tell my child one thing, somebody else that doesn't know them can tell them the same thing, and they'll listen to that other person. Mm-hmm. It's never more aggravating for me, but at the same time, you know, when you're mentoring these people, make sure that you are setting those expectations. And if you don't know what they are, pick up the phone. Any employer that's looking for people to hire will give you any information you want.
Right.
And partnering is the biggest thing that I can say to do. We, you know, want to be partners, not only in the WEI, it's great. You know, we want anybody, and we talk about this a lot with Carl Health now. You know, everybody has to go through bias training. Everybody has to go through those different expectations. And we are in an atmosphere where people wear scrubs to work every day. They're not judged on the way they look. They're not judged on what they wear or what brands they're wearing. What they're judged on is their compassion, their ability, their drive, their focus, and their willingness to put in the work. And that's what we have to make sure that people understand from the beginning.
That's wonderful. And one of the things we've been talking about and working on as a consortium is how do we not only meet those needs, but help employers understand we're changing, the students are changing, and some of those standards need to change. So how can we all work together to make sure the student is prepped, and to make sure that maybe, you know, we hear horror stories about transportation and, a student who's very well skilled to serve, but the bus schedule doesn't get them there. That shouldn't keep them out of the job market. So we're all having to pivot, right? And if we all can be a little flexible, right, we can really, you know, blow this workforce up, right, and bring a lot of opportunity to a lot of folks. So thank you very much. Let's talk about the automotive industry then and what you're seeing there.
Well, I think that it's funny that some of the same conversations that I'm hearing from the healthcare are the same ones that we're having in the automotive industry. Those challenges are not unique. Where do we get our people from? Well, We go to job fairs. We're listening to who's being recommended to the programs. The biggest challenge with that is that I'm not the only person in the room. There are a number of employers that are there. We are all trying to get the same person. How do I get that person to my door? And then once I get them to my door, how do I make them stay? Let's not fool ourselves that the young people today know that they are a commodity. I wasn't familiar with the term ghosting until that was new.
Oh, yes.
I am familiar with it now. And for those of you who don't know, ghosting is when they ghost, when they just leave.
In the middle of a shift.
Right. I mean, one young man went to lunch and we never saw him again. And perhaps that's the automotive industry, but so I think that I think that one of the things that we have to recognize, also an understanding, is that we can't put all the onus on the colleges. We have to do a good job of recruiting ourselves. We are all invested in our communities, and it is nothing for me to see someone, and I am fast to say, have you thought about going this direction? Because if you do, hey, they can help you get back to me. We live in a society that when your car is broken, your world stops. And even north of I-80. But when your car doesn't work, that's a problem. And we have to ensure that the people who are coming to us are skilled, because if you don't put a tire nut on the right way, it could be catastrophic. And those sometimes are challenges that we face. So all that being said, what are we trying to do? Well, one of the things I most recently did is I try to understand time versus quality. And I am instituting, beginning July 1, we are moving to a 4-day work week with a 3-day flex at a higher workplace. Those of us that do this, we've been doing it a long time, right? Mm-hmm. We grew up in the old days. You're not working 60 hours a week, you're not working. And what we have to quickly understand is that the people today, because they're a commodity, say, I'm gonna give you 20 and a half. Does that work? Sure, we're gonna make it work. So, we're gonna go to, 4 on, 3 off and split people and see if we can not only get more, but retain more by giving them a better quality of life.
That's wonderful.
Amazing.
And thank you for your willingness to change and grow. We've got, right, I just think to make the whole puzzle work, we have to do that, and you're a wonderful example of that. We're moving into manufacturing, so we've got a local story with manufacturing where we've got a Mate Rivian, a major manufacturer in the region, who runs a shuttle bus back and forth to the bus station here in Peoria to pick up people to go there, right? And then sometimes some of the local companies are concerned because why aren't they working in our region? And the answer is because they need transportation, and this company's meeting it and this company's not. So again, as we all continue to take a look at what we're doing and how we can all be flexible, there are thousands, in this district alone, there are 48,000 adults with some college and no credential. And to get a credential like one of these, you're waiting for them. It changes their life. So let's figure out what those gaps are along the system so we can move people, right? We can move people forward. So let's talk a little bit more about manufacturing, Jennifer.
So not to be redundant, these people said it all very well. Our story sort of began with, we didn't even really have an HR department. We relied on our weld foreman to talk with our employees if we needed more help. And then they just sort of found someone and we employed them, and we just went about our lives and, kept on with our production. That quit working. And when that quit working, it was around actually 2019. My boss, Ty Fennell, which I believe you guys saw earlier, he is the owner of JT Fennell Company. I think he was on one of your slides. He came to me specifically and said, what are we gonna do? And I was not even really in an HR role at that point. I was payroll. But we started brainstorming, and we actually reached out to ICC, and they sent us someone to talk with us about some job recruitment ideas. And then we went into some of our area high schools and called, do you guys have job fairs? Do you guys, just kind of started networking a little bit, just looking for people to employ in the trades. And we ran across this program, and we met up with John Runzer and Kara and several other people, and we went over to one of the recruitment events at their Pekin location on Hannah Drive. And what we were asked to do is just kind of talk a little bit about our company, and then to interview, and I believe there were 12 that first I guess not semester, but
Cohort, yeah.
yeah, cohort. And so we sat down, the owner and I of JT Fennel, and we interviewed 12 people in a row. And I had never even really been part of an interview process before. It was amazing. We loved it. We loved the enthusiasm, and we liked that, this was preparing these students to go out actually and interview for real. So what we thought was so cool is we picked 2 people, and we weren't even speaking to each other until afterwards, that we thought, wow, they might work at our company, and we might actually be able to hire somebody from this event. So we actually invited all 12 people to come to our factory there in Peoria and do a weld test, just to kind of help them practice what do you run across when you show up in a factory with your weld helmet and they give you all your PPE and they say, okay, run a bead, So you could kind of see they were like deer in headlights there at first. But I think it was very helpful for the program. And then we snagged our 2 workers, and we still have them today. But we do need more workers, and we are just desperate for programs like this. I think our biggest really the hurdle that we have as an employer is relying on educators to help us with our fears. And our fears are endorsements, tuition programs, contracts. How can we be partner up? You hear partner up, but we don't really know what that means. And we're fearful that we're going to spend dollars in our budget and it's not going to be worth it. And we're fearful with that, but then we know we have to spend the money to get to our goal, which is to hire quality workers to stay with us. Our workforce at JT Fennel Company, majority of my guys have been there over 20 years. And we have a workforce that's ready to retire. And it is scary. We have increased productivity that we need, and our guys are coming up and talking about, okay, how about Medicare? How about that? With all the questions about how they're going to retire, and we're literally in a panic. And so what we need is this workforce coming ready for us to do our just specific training to get them ready to help us with productivity to meet our goals. So bottom of our heart, I know from manufacturing companies around this area, we thank you. I run into, I could name 10 companies right now in the Peoria area that we run into each other at job fairs, just as you all were just speaking. We're seeing each other and we're scrambling to try to get that person, and sometimes it is the same person. So anyway, thank you for all you do, and that's why we're here today.
Well, and we very much appreciate that you're here today. Anybody picking up on patterns that you're hearing here, right? So what kind of patterns? Did you, every one of them say that they're willing to work with us, that they're willing to rethink what they're doing, that they're willing to come in and talk to our students? So sometimes I think as educators, we're a little hesitant, maybe we're a little scared, maybe we are, right? Go out and ask. Right? I think companies are willing to partner with us. And like I said, if we carry on the conversation about we are providing a pathway, right, a way to leverage what they need, right, and they're willing to work with us to get there, right? So we're solving, right, this works for the individual of poverty, this works for the college, this works for the employer. It's a win-win-win. And when we do this, we're changing people's lives and allowing companies to sustain and grow. So this is just working for everybody. I also heard another theme about retention. Right, so it's one thing to get these students in, right, and another thing to keep them. And couldn't agree more, they understand they're a commodity. Right, we have students coming out of our LPN program who then go in and become visiting LPNs. So they're working half the hours for more, right, so they are doing better off than if they took the full-time job. In the short run, financially, right? Welcome to the day's world. It's the short run financially is what is their only barometer, right? So we work with that with workforce readiness to have them see things differently, but we have all that going on. So the going down then with another question here then is, and we'll start with you, Jennifer, talk to us about that retention problem and talk to us about what you're seeing there and how we might be able to help with that as well. So I'll start you off, for example, with ICC's program, when we survey those students as we place them, 70% said they want to go on and get that next level certificate, right? They've learned, they've heard us, they know they need to continue to invest in themselves. So how does that work for you as an employer? Do you have tuition reimbursement? Would you flex their hours? Would you support them, maybe not working the overtime so they can go make the evening class? Or any of those retention issues. When you're getting ghosted, you know, we have students tell us that it's embarrassing to go to your employer and say, hey, the first month my brother was willing to pick me up and drive me to the job because they were all so happy that I have a job, but that's not sustainable. And now he doesn't, and the bus doesn't get there, and I'm embarrassed to say that, so I'm just not going to show up anymore, right? So what kind of packages can we continue to put together to make sure that our employees, until they truly get on their feet, it may take a couple of years before you can afford a car if you've never had a car and now it's your first job out of poverty. How can we continue to support together to make sure that this sticks and people are successful?
Well, for sure, I believe flexibility is a key point to that. I think manufacturing companies, you know, have policies. Some of them have pretty rigorous training that you actually don't receive your full pay until you get through that training process. We're trying to, I guess, be flexible with hours, I guess would be the first thing. Offer benefits sooner, especially if they're asking for them. And it's kind of a little more competitive that way, that we can get their families insured a little bit quicker and kind of put a little more effort into, I guess, helping them and giving them the benefit of working for us before they actually, I guess, this is past terminology, but before they earn it, if you, so to speak. Just kind of putting our bet on them, if you'd like to put it that way, that we think you will succeed with us, so we're going to go ahead and give you that benefit package. I think job shadowing for us is crucial. Instead of a training program, our guys end up becoming friends, typically, because they spend so much time together, and our older guys are willing, and not just by age do I mean older, I guess, you know, if they have more time in and they know the job, they're willing to train our newer employees. They then end up talking with each other, and before they know it, you know, they've bridged a gap of some sort, and they have things in common that they never thought they would have. And a friendship begins, and I've seen it happen where they just take that new employee under, you know, their wing, and before we know it, we have someone trained up that can do the job just as well as the person that taught them. So for me, I believe our company, it's the job shadowing. And then our biggest fear, like I mentioned before, is working with educators, you know, to be that partner. I want to know what that means. I want to know how much money that's going to cost us and exactly what we have to do to really gain quality employees from the educator is kind of what we're looking for. It's very hard for manufacturers, I believe, to look past our doors of what we need to get done. Mm-hmm. And so we need to change that and reach out to the schools and the educators so we can then find out who we have available to employ and what do we need to do to bridge the gap to get them in. And so really that's kind of where we stand as a company.
Wonderful. We were talking with the WEI colleges who were here with us yesterday, right? We were talking about the, with Jobs for the Future, how it's our responsibility to help be a resource for businesses on how to be a better partner, because it just, right, outcomes grow for everybody, right? If we can all figure that out together. So thanks for that. Why don't you go ahead?
How do we handle retention? I like to think that people are going to leave for one of a few reasons. They don't like the people, they don't like the place, or they don't like the pay. We've addressed the pay because I feel like we are paying really good money. Now, compared to the truck driver number that I just heard, we're not paying really good money. So my goal is that my guys don't know what the truck drivers make. What can you do? It would be really nice to know what your students say that they need before we sit down and interview them and figure out a way that we can address their needs up front. Sometimes we may think that they want better pay and it's not pay. Sometimes we may think that they want a different environment and it may not be the environment, but we don't know. And because we don't know, we lose that employee. And the fear, as she just mentioned, is that when someone comes in our door, it is an investment on our part. We must spend money to make them better. And if they leave, then they leave with the knowledge that we've given them, they leave with the money that we've invested into them, and they leave a hole in our workforce. So we become, I think, sometimes hesitant to reach out and employ people who we just aren't sure of. Right. So I would ask that as an employee or an employer, tell me what your students are telling you inside the classroom, and let us develop something around that we can be better partners and have that long-term commitment. That would be huge.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
great.
Right. We have a TRIP program, as you mentioned. It's a tuition reimbursement incentive program. If they come to work for us, we will pay for their continuing certificates. If they go back, we know that the more skilled they are, the more money they can command. And so, again, I think that we're trying to do everything that we can in order to get people in our door. The other part that I would ask is that it is hard to teach character. And so, as my good friend Marv told me one day, it is much harder to be than to become. It is much harder sometimes to stay employed than to become employed. And that weighs on all of us. And I don't know how you instill upon your students that when you commit to an employer, there has to be that word of commitment. Sure, there's going to be a lot of people that make a run at you. Sure, there's going to be a lot of things that you think are somewhat greener on the other side. But we are vesting and we are investing in you, your students, and we are going to ask that they at least commit back to us so that it becomes that win-win situation. Those are the asks that I would say.
That's wonderful. And we do have workforce readiness, right, as part of what we do. So we talk about those issues, but to continue to get feedback from you about if it's working or if it's taking. I think we've got about 3 minutes left, so I'm going to turn it over to Carl if you guys want to put your answers together. But this is very helpful for us to understand what challenges you're facing there.
So in regards to retention, especially for our LPN group, we have 2 different ways that they can come into the organization. And we created this really as a recruiting tool, but it's ended up being more of a retention piece. So maybe they can come into a specific unit that they're interested in, but we also have a different option that they can come in and work on 2 or 3 different units to figure out what place is their home. And we've really come to find out that when they kind of bebop between a few different units, they get to see different coworkers. I mean, that matters. Different managers and different patient populations. And then once they figure out which one is their home and they're comfortable, then they're able to grow just from there. They can plant their roots and grow exponentially. And so that is really with LPNs, that's really our biggest retention piece, is leaving it up to the candidate on how they would like to come into our organization in regards to where they would like to work and giving those options for working.
Nice.
Yeah. And the only thing that I would add is, as an organization, partnering with schools to be able to say, what do candidates look for, but also when you're interviewing candidates or when you're doing mock interviews with your students, Talk to them about not only their 1-year plan, their 3-year plan, their 5-year plan. What are they looking for? Does this employer give it? Because again, we are in a world of instant gratification. Instant gratification isn't going to come in an employer right away, but money isn't everything. I don't know if you've heard, we have this competitor across the street from us now. It's like if somebody raises rates, somebody else will raise rates. Well, if money isn't the number one factor, what is? It's valued. Are you valued? Employee relations, your coworkers. Do you have flexibility? I would take a pay cut if I loved the people that I worked with and wanting to go to work every day, and then the opportunity for advancement. I think that is huge, because if you want to stay stagnant and you want to stay in your first role that you're in, that's fantastic. We definitely need those people, but we need those people who want to move on or want to do different things. And what career opportunities could there be for the future? That's a great question. If students don't have a question to ask, what opportunities are there for me in this role, or what skills do I need to advance to the next role? Those are great questions to ask in an interview.
Now, those are wonderful, wonderful points. So you guys all have companies you work for, and you had other things you could have done with your time, but I can't tell you how valuable it is that you would come and share your insights and how we're doing and how it's working for you with this group. So please join me in thanking our panel, because this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'm going to truck driving school.
Go get my license.